So let's get into the session. Before that, let me briefly introduce Enabling World for everyone. I mean, most of you would know, but in case you're not aware, so we are a very small boutique HR consulting firm and just completed 10 years of our existence. And I'm the founder, so along with my partner, Sushil, we run this organization and a small team. Our focus areas are into HR technology, leadership and talent development, HR consulting, a little bit of on selective basis outsourcing services, and employee well-being is a big portfolio for us. So these are the couple of few areas that we work into. So with that brief introduction, let's go dive into the subject right way. So let me start, Devesh, with you. So first of all, why do you think hybrid model? What's the business case for hybrid model, right? Why do you think as a business it is important to adopt this model? I'm sure you would have examined different ways of working and you have resorted to hybrid working. So what's the business case?
So no, absolutely. I think that's a question that we often get, from the team members, from the peers. So I think from my perspective, Sanjeev, the biggest piece that I believe the hybrid work model is bringing for us is, so let's look at what we've done over the last 2.5 years. And I'm very keen to listen to Papia and Joyita as well, especially Papia, because she's been working on this topic since 2016 prior to the pandemic. So that's a different perspective. For me, the way we look at, so the hybrid work model is, it's all about social interactions. It's all about social capital. If we look at are we not able to deliver projects while sitting at home and working with our co-workers more remotely? The kind of jobs that, especially the industry that I represent out here, are not the jobs which cannot be done, from a home-based or remote-based location. Can we not be productive? While we are delivering some of these projects, we are absolutely being productive. We can always argue maybe our number of hours that we are spending at work have gone up. Maybe the output has not necessarily increased as much as we would have wanted. But the biggest impact that I'm seeing, over the last few years now, is towards the lack of that social capital. Is towards those informal conversations that we would have typically picked up in an office environment, and walking up to someone to get an answer to a quick question by tapping on the back. Out here, we have to set up a meeting now and get that answer. So the way we are now kind of moving into this new future of work, space perspective, I don't see 5 days coming in for various reasons. I think over the last 2.5 years, we realized the importance of wellness, whether we talk about physical wellness, mental health, relationship with the family, and so on. So, people have got a lot of time to themselves. So going back to that 5 days a week kind of a work schedule would not necessarily work out. But then at the same point in time, on the other extreme, not going to the office or a workplace completely is also something which I'm still coming terms to it, whether it will work out or not, because right now we don't have many success based use cases. So hybrid is something which gives us that opportunity to manage a balance between the two, whether we talk about as I said, creating that social capital, the collaboration that we need to forge for us to be able to innovative, the level of loneliness that we need to bring in, the isolation. I mean, professionally, I think people who are totally home-based, there's a bit of isolation that we can see in them as well. So that's my view in terms of why I think hybrid is a good use case, and a large part of it is driven by the industry that I represent as well.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks for that. And I like when you say there were a lot of debate on the productivity has not gone down and output has not suffered. So I think there's a difference in the output, because output somehow we are able to manage what was expected, but is it really productive? Is really a question mark, right? I mean, I do agree with you. Papia, you have been talking to a lot of clients, you're doing a lot of consulting. What do you see a consistent theme on the business case for hybrid?
So I will first qualify by saying that we have, when we are talking about overall in India, right, we have to take into consideration that different industries have gone through a different journey. When it comes to remote working, when it comes to hybrid. So what we saw was Essential services, for example, came back to working either normally or working hybrid in the first year itself, right?
Yeah.
Then we got manufacturing coming back to work because that became survival issue for them, because most of their jobs had a very low remote potential. That's what we call, right? Then we also saw financial sector moving, and slowly if we look at, there are significant number of industries where the remote potential of the jobs were less, or which required a direct interaction, in-person interactions. We find that over the last, I would say by July, October 2021, they were back in either full office or in hybrid. I think the biggest challenge currently, which is the other extreme that we are facing, is in technology sector. Because the technology sector, what we have to understand, the potential of remote is very, very high. And over the period of time, there is also a habit formation that has happened. So, and your life is now almost built around the new setup that you have created. Significant population has moved to their hometowns, or people have don't have a support system at home, or your routine has built up accordingly. So it is the habit formation that has happened that is creating a big, huge challenge. What we see is a big challenge, as I said, is mainly in ITES, which has been into work from home situation for the longest time. And why are the employers, the question, I will again go back to the productivity piece that you guys spoke about. Actually, when we look deeper inside the productivity, the story is not the same. There was an improvement in productivity in the first 6-7 months because time saved in travel or time saved in informal conversations directly got converted into work time. Because of that, your productivity, there was a clear productivity improvement, right? Which was the story first year. But after that, the organizations also faced great resignation, right? That was the story. And because of the great resignation, almost anything between 40 to 60% of the population is new population. And the new population, the assimilation has not been as great as it happens in person. So the belongingness, pride, feeling of team camaraderie, those things are still very, very at a superficial level, which is not allowing the teams to cohesively function and giving the kind of a productivity that we earlier used to talk about together. Because the team is a new team, almost a new team now. And those relationships, trust, and the way she spoke about social capital is completely not built, right? So the productivity, maybe they are giving what is allocated to them during the day or a week.
True.
But when we speak about value add, when we speak about improvement in processes, we talk about innovation, or we talk about brilliant solutioning, I think there is a pinch. And almost everywhere the organizations are facing it. And in IT, that's the reason they keep on going back to the drawing board and saying, how can we make hybrid happen? And their biggest resistance is that if it could happen earlier, why can't it continue like work from home? So but there is a challenge of productivity. There are 2-3 more challenges that I see, which is pushing the organization. I think the whole cultural fabric is now a big question. It's very scattered. And it's very difficult to say what's the culture of an organization that everybody is following, because it is lived, right? Culture is something that we live together.
Every day, yeah.
Yeah, everyday life. So that's something which is coming as a big question mark, because same people don't have similar experiences. And because there is so much movement that has happened, those experiences have not got built. The third piece again is employees do not have social capital. So they don't have the networks, they don't have the relationships, they don't have a social fabric that employees built in. Because of that, the whole sense of belongingness to the organization is missing. So, like in one of our research, when we were talking to employees, said, I am employed to the laptop. That's the only connection to the organization. And when they change the job, the laptop changes. So there is absolutely no trust formation. There is no relationship formation. So the social capital building, which is huge part of engagement, has been missing.
And Papia, just to check, sorry to interrupt you in between, but do you see in your research that overall employee engagement level, especially for the new joinees who joined during the COVID, just remotely, right? Especially, is it significantly lower than what it used to be, or an average engagement level? Is that what your research shows?
So it's interesting one. Let me not give you a direct answer, but last year, organizations, this was the biggest question, Sanjeev, you have really put a finger on the right nerve, was that all the organizations, they were publishing, I'm into great places of work, I have the highest last year. Actually, organizations saw highest engagement scores, but they saw highest attrition. And that is the point where the question started coming. My engagement is not giving me insights into retention. We don't know, how the retention will happen. So we also happen, as Uncube, we also happen to be the first people to bring in social capital concept in corporate world, because social capital was earlier looked at from the citizenship point, community point of view. We translated it and we did some big research with IT organizations. We brought it back. And social capital actually gives us the answer that I might be satisfied, I might be engaged, but I don't feel belonging. I don't have the network, I don't have the friends, kind of a piece. And in the social capital research, so one of the very, very large IT organizations that we did the research on social capital, their engagement scores were all-time high, and their attrition scores were also all-time high. And when we did the social capital, we found that there is scores on groups and network, a component of social capital in groups and network, that too with the team was really missing. When it came to peer network, the team network, it was the lowest. And that is the isolation piece that we spoke about. Then we also saw that the whole thing of organizational belongingness or organizational pride that comes in because of the participation in organizational events was completely missing, because they have not experienced any kind of a thing. They have not participated inside the organization. And the trust was debilitating. And when your trust is debilitating, it cannot be a place where you feel comfortable.
So the equation of engagement leading to directly correlated to retention, etc., is changing, right? These dynamics are changing, and which should be a challenge for everyone, business leaders and HR professionals in particular, because we have been saying that, higher engagement means higher retention and then higher productivity. So those dynamics are changing. We have to rewrite the equation and the rules and the dynamics of the game, right? And complex for all of us to really understand, isn't it?
That's where the conversation is more shifting on employee experience. People are not talking about engagement, they're talking about employee experience.
Correct.
And in experience, all the components does come in, and relationships form a very, very important component of it.
Great. I'll come to you.
Sorry, I've taken a lot of
time. No, absolutely. Very insightful. And this is about sharing some unique insight, which typically we don't know, right? I mean, that session is all about that, because a lot of things we know, we don't want to repeat that. We want to get some very unique insight. So two takeaways from what you're saying is that productivity went up initially, but then it came down, especially because of the new joinees who are not engaged. And this engagement doesn't mean feeling of belongingness, and the dynamics are changing. Very, very interesting. Papi, I'll come back to you. Joyita, I know you will say, what's the big deal about hybrid, right? We already cracked it, we have done it, and we are all business as usual. I don't know why this world is even talking about remote, etc. So we are out of that. But, as you said, we are part of the ecosystem, right? Even manufacturing, there are certain roles which people can do in manufacturing or in, those industries where work can be done remotely, right? I would divide into two, right? And you struggle to compete with those people, right? Getting into manufacturing. So how is it affecting manufacturing, and I would also say those industries where work cannot be done remotely. If I remember, one of the McKinsey reports said of the total roles which can be done across the globe, jobs, 50% cannot be done remotely, first of all, right? I mean, 50% of the roles, they cannot be done remotely, first of all, right? I mean, all this hoopla is all around those remaining 50% where potentially work can be done remotely. And this is the debate. Should I do remotely or should I do from the office, and complexity? But how is it affecting the manufacturing organization and related industries? And how are you dealing with it?
Sure. So, I mean, I've been here in Biocon for last 11 months. And before this, which is like Biocon being a pharma manufacturing company. And before this, I was with Future Group, part of the food manufacturing and retail. Right. I mean, so obviously that was at the peak of, the pandemic. But there again, if you look at it, people were looking at all the supplies coming to them. I mean, if you leave aside, the garments and that part of it, the food part of it and the FMCG part of it, people were looking for supplies, and our productions were absolutely there. The retail stores were very much open, and even the e-commerce part of it, saw a very, very different change. And so you needed teams to be around. I mean, it was very difficult to work and coordinate and get things done remotely. So there again, if we look at it, the supply chain team, the plants and all people in the production, they were on the shop floor. And the rest of us also had to be around. I mean, many people volunteered to do roles and help and, be there, right? So I saw that phase. And now here in Biocon, again, like in the last 2 years, I mean, nothing has stopped for us, right? I mean, we had to have, the productions in full capacity. And, so even the support teams, if you look at HR for that matter, or I mean, so they had to be around to, kind of ensure that nothing stops. Of course, we had a flexibility that, some functions could work from home while the others could not. But if we continued to remain in that, manner, that certain teams come to office and the others have a free option to, continue working from home, it wasn't working. That huge distinction wouldn't have worked. So therefore, we came back to work. I think 100%. I think from October onwards almost, but definitely starting this year, we were back to work. Of course, we made some changes. Like we have now formalized once a week work from home policy, which largely, certain functions can only leverage, because if you are in the production floor, you may not still be able to use it as easily, because then there are shifts and schedules and things like that. But that's been a shift that has happened for us, that we've changed the policy. Now, coming to your question that, how are we dealing with certain functions where, resources can move around from one company to the other, or one industry to the other, or even within the pharma space, there's been different stands taken by different companies, right? I mean, so therefore, it is a challenge, it is a dilemma, but we have to kind of adapt something which is relevant to us as an organization. So each organization has taken a stand. So we were little flexible initially. We gave some time, because as Papia was mentioned, there's a lot of mindset issues. People had gotten used to doing things, and getting them to undo a lot of that, the family expectations that, why everybody, is working from home. Why do you have to go and work? And, and that inherent fear in the mind of people initially was driven a lot by fear, followed by comfort, which they didn't want to, kind of leave aside. So, but I think we were initially more flexible, but we were consistent with our communication that, look, this is how we want to operate, and we are ensuring safe working places. And, with repeated communication and conversations, we are now, there where people have understood that this is the way to go. However, we still face challenges in certain functions. Attrition has been any all-time high, irrespective of whichever industry you are. Even those who are offering hybrid work models or work from home largely, they are also seeing attrition. So are we. I mean, so in that sense, that hasn't changed. But yes, in certain functions, hiring is becoming a little bit more challenging because there are companies which give them far more flexibility and which we are not. But I guess, people are also realizing that gradually more and more companies are returning back to work. So it is just a question of couple of months before which, people would be expected. I mean, I see the traffic in the Bangalore city is gradually every month, kind of, you can see that it's increasing. And that also is a reflection that those who were staying at home and had an option, more and more people are coming back to work.
So this is interesting. In case you need to know return to office trend, just look at the traffic, right? I mean, you will be able to figure it out. Absolutely. No, I think thanks. And that's very unique, dynamics and the challenges that, manufacturing or similar industries where, work from remote work is just not possible. In a way, you're blessed because there's no choice, right? So most of the people, there's not much of the debate, right? So whereas, in organizations like IT or research organization like Devesh, it's health tech, there, it's a challenge, right? Now, Devesh, coming to you, how do you decide in terms of rostering? Because one of the challenge for you when you're opening your office, who will come, when will they come? As a business, how do you deal with this? And that's a challenge. I think most of us, who are in this space would be figuring out. But as a business head, how are you resolving this?
So, I think that's a very practical question. Thanks, Sanjeev, for raising it. Our decision making, whether we talk about, if I take a step back and I first go to the first step, which is, okay, which roles can be home based and which are the ones which would be hybrid, right? Now, we can always argue that a software developer could be both home based, hybrid. A software tester could be the same. A product owner could be the same. So what we typically did was we did take a role based view, in terms of how a role is structured, whether it's the only person in India and rest of the team is in the US, whether the role is required to work in a particular shift or a time, for us to be able to give coverage, whether the role is a pure play individual contributor role or it has an element which involves collaboration and, speaking with others. So we took a very role-based approach, Yes, on top of it, there were, human aspects taken into account with regards to health, with regards to temporary arrangements that need to be made. So the first decision that got made was, okay, which are the roles which can be home-based and which are the ones which absolutely need to be hybrid. Then the second step was, now once we have the roles defined, we went to the roster of each employee, okay, how can we bring them and allocate a workplace profile to them? Coming to the rostering in terms of, we have these 5 days, which team is going to work. A lot of that was driven by the teams themselves, talking about the first line managers and the mid-level managers, because in our kind of, work environment, we have these daily stand-up meetings, we have these scrum meetings that need to happen. When we are having these daily stand-up meetings, they typically happen towards the later side of the day. In our case, from an India time zone perspective, when we talk about scrum meetings, we are talking about 20-30 people coming together. So a lot of those factors, in terms of when and where the kind of collaboration is needed, decided the rostering. The second aspect of that was also, for many people, okay, the way the things would be worked out in their personal lives, that one person out of the couple is working on a couple of days, the other one is working on the other 2-3 days. So I think that also played a role. So it was a mix and match of role-based approach, the logistical communication cadence that is there from a team management or a project management perspective, And then we also did take into account, some of these personal aspects of the employees for them to be able to manage their routines, between, let's say, a spouse or a couple in this case. I'm just giving that as an example. So those were some of the approaches taken at our end.
Must be very tough to, gather all the insights and take decision, and which is fair. I mean, first of all, as a business head, you would like it to be very fair to everyone, right? And still a business need should be met, isn't it? So striking balance between both must be tough.
I would say we are still doing that. We are still in the process of striking the balance. We did come up with a model. 80% of that worked, 20% of that did, or maybe it was more. It was 60% of it worked and 40% did not work. We refined that model again. So we are right now in our third iteration, so to say. So, wow. And I'm sure we'll have more iterations as we continue to stabilize in this environment.
Okay, so we'll hear more from you on this. Papia, coming to you, as we were talking, you did mention that there's a lot of research on even deciding the site, right? I mean, there's a science behind identifying where your work location should be, right? In this, depending on where people are. So can you throw some light on and help me and help all of us understand as a business from whatever you have heard from the clients and in your own research?
So basically, wherever, after work from home process started, and when we were not able to get people back to their what they call base location, and mainly in IT organization, some financial sector also this has happened. So IT is also now, fintechs and pharma techs, so all kind of organizations.
All tech, the technology has really.
So it's a very, very large sector now. So basically the thinking has been that if we can't bring people back to the base location, can we take work to the people? That's the concept of, work near people, right? So when we started looking in, that looked like an obvious choice that, it's a brilliant thinking that we will have a locations, we will have multiple locations. And if you do a very broad level understanding, you will find that there is a population density or employee density that comes from tier 2 cities, that there is like a. So it looked like a very, very good strategy for many organizations to go for. But the challenge is it depends on the actual population density. Where is the population gone to? And unless your size is significantly big, where we are talking about hundreds and thousands of people, there is a possibility that the locations that you are talking about, the population density is not practical enough for you to set up another office, right? So that's the challenge that is coming. The second challenge is there is no guarantee that people will come, even though you set up the office, because what you need to go and maybe do double click on that the density where the travel time is not more than 40 minutes to an hour. Because if you are setting up in, let's say in tier 2 town, but your travel time is 2 hours by the nearby places, it is not going to work. It is, it's not going to give you result. So it is a much complex that's looking at the tier 1. The second piece that comes in is most of the time you are wanting to bring people back to offices so the teams can be together and they are able to function together, right? They are able to brainstorm.
Cross-functional. You don't work within your own department. You work cross-functional.
It is both. Your own teams, if I'm talking about IT at large or tech at large, it is your own teams that you are doing the delivery or a project, or you're part of a offshore development center, whatever it is. It has been, that is how the base locations were decided, right? Everybody comes together to work in. But when you are talking about people being, dispersed, then the experience of those dispersed team, even though they might be coming to offices, is very virtual. So the meaning of coming to office needs to be redefined. So it's a much more complex that how do you have a location culture? How do you have location engagement? How do you have location belonging? Because most of the places, the anchor was the project or a program or a particular client that you are working for. And in this case, that is going to be dispersed. So how do you manage? It will take some time for organizations to work that again, that one location has one kind of a project or one kind of a client. It will take its own time depending upon the skill availability of people, depending upon the manpower. So it's quite complex in that sense. So the experience that you want to give people of coming to offices, and some people are even talking about going to offices like, WeWork kind of a setup and taking that. But then how does that also help? Because people are coming in twos and threes. Are they getting the complete organizational experience of coming to office? So there are more questions now coming in as the organizations are looking into it. It has given success to large organizations. We know Accenture has, been opening offices in tier 2 towns, and there are other organizations also which are looking into. But unless the size is becoming a concern, that what size we don't know yet, because it's a new model. So we are yet to arrive at that, what size will make a practical sense for people to have a new office. Correct. And what will be the mode of engagement of those employees with the other organizations.
Correct. Because you're right, in a small organization, suppose you are say 200, 300, I mean, it is impossible for you to divide the organization into multiple cities spread out in a very small groups, right? Maybe 5, 10 also. It won't make sense. It won't achieve the purpose, right? But it's an interesting dynamics that organizations are going back to where employees are, right? That's what the change is happening, isn't it? And, if I talk about it, maybe the concept of cities will gradually dilute, because cities were created because people came to a particular center for work, for business, for trade, and that is how cities were formed. But I mean, if we see the impact of this, gradually the concept of cities will get diluted, right? The density will fizzle out, as we're saying that. Okay, so we'll come to you again. Anything you want to add, anyone?
So one piece that I wanted to add,
sure.
Is a very interesting concept again when we look at from understanding the macroeconomic factor. This is the first time we are looking at reverse migration. Most of the migration so far has happened migration for employment. This is the first time in the employment history we are studying reverse migration. So, and when we are looking at a reverse migration, it is a very different kind of a social and community structure that is going to emerge. So all the students of economics, it will be very, very interesting piece to look at how it unfolds in the long run.
Yeah. So to add to that, one of the significant factors of attrition that we see is people wanting to go back closer to home, which wasn't the case in the past, but we see a significant number of people saying that as a reason to, move out. And many Absolutely. Of those locations are smaller towns and places.
You're right, Joyita. I think earlier the concept has changed. Earlier there was a work and you fix your life around the work, right? Today they said, this is my life, this is how I want to live. And then I'll see a work which fits into my scheme of things, right? So that's a paradigm shift which is happening, of course, that we're talking about. So Joyita, I mean, in your view, in your experience, what are key challenges, the employees have, right? And what can we do about it? Like, this is about managing, this session, we all know challenges, but I think we should certainly, close this session with giving some tips and insights of what has worked with us, right? So I think 2 questions embedded. One, what are 2, 3 top key challenges employees face, especially emotional challenges? Because what I have seen, we have been talking to a lot of clients in this area, and they say the emotional challenges that employees go through, including managers, is huge and unprecedented. So how are you seeing that trend in the industry, and what we as HR, as leaders, can help them? Very crisp answer.
So one of the bigger challenges which was brought about some time back was the overall ecosystem around us, where do you leave your children behind and some of those aspects. So for our organization, we are having good creches and things like that, right? So, we are trying to, extend those. Mm-hmm. Employees, and that takes care of some of these aspects. But I think if companies are able to tackle some of these aspects of how the rest of the support system would work, is something, and which I think, will happen gradually. So I think companies should look at, this whole gradual process of bringing people back in a rostering way, because that is also going to help them to see that, okay, coming back to work is fun as well. Because we spoke that, being secluded and sitting at home is not everyone's cup of tea. And once you start coming out, you start realizing that you were missing out, a lot of it, right? And so that is also,
Yeah, right.
I see a lot of that happen in, places where they're happy to come back. So you start with 2 days, and then, gradually you're okay to get them back for the third or the fourth day. And when they see that they are talking to each other in a team environment and all that social connect that you are saying, it's a lot of buy-in which is happening automatically. So I would say that that gradual approach might work for certain industries. And as I mentioned, that some of these other support systems like the concierge service and things like that, which are any which way prevalent in some of the IT
Sure.
service companies like that, I think those will have a big role to play, because today the whole issue of fear is gradually going. Now we are gradually kind of started accepting that it is another kind of cold and a flu kind of a thing, and fortunately the number of kind of
Is it going down?
are reduced. Yeah, so then we also have started looking at it accordingly. So that's my take.
Thank you. And I think there's a question from Dr. Nirali. And Devesh, since you're opening, maybe you are the best person to answer that. How are you preparing your work environment, which seems to be safe for, still people have anxiety. Let's not forget this, right? If still the numbers are coming down, but still there are anxieties, especially depending on your own unique situation. If you have elders at home, you don't want to take chances. So people would have some anxiety. So how are we preparing our ecosystem, which is, fit for people to return back to work? So any quick tips?
Absolutely, Sanjeev. I think the most important aspect is making sure that whatever we have in terms of our infrastructure is COVID protocol ready, right? Whether we talk about, we still are following a social distancing. If we look at the way we are arranging our seating on our workspace or our work floor, we still follow that. We don't use the entire space available. So we are still using 50% of that. From an overall ecosystem perspective, I think infrastructure is definitely one piece of it. So the office is now more of a collab space, wherein you're coming in to ideate, to collaborate, rather than actually come and code. So that percentage of coding from offices will significantly come down, and it's more about the collaboration space of it. The second aspect is more around, and this is something that we did with you guys, with Enabling World, in terms of this manager-employee orientation, because they need to be prepared for them to be able to come to the office. Nobody's speaking to them beyond some memos and emails going out. So, having a manager orientation done, first of all, making them realize that before managers, they are employees themselves. So before they take care of themselves, they need to take care about, before they take care of their team members, they need to take care of themselves, and what are the kind of anxieties or fear that they have, we need to alleviate them. Those fears and those anxieties. And the second piece is putting themselves into the shoes of managers. What are the things that they need to take care of, whether it's compassion, whether it's empathy, whether it's communication, whether it's connecting with people. So that piece is something which I believe has been very powerful. I wish we could have, I'm sure we could have done more than what we did, but I think we hit the right note, and thanks to Enabling World for enabling that for us. And I think the last piece is, and this is where a lot of HR interventions sort of come in. I'll just give you an example. We've brought in, Joyita was, talking about childcare. Now, for the size of company that we are, we probably may not be able to manage an infrastructure. So what we really did was we went back to the team members and we offered them a childcare assistance, which was a financial assistance. And I'm sure many other companies are doing that. What something different we also did was, we offered each of our team member, irrespective of their date of joining, a relocation package. So for them to be able to, so this is, for them to be able to get that assistance from us for them to be able to relocate if needed from their hometowns back to the base location, so, and this is not a loan, this is like a something that they can work out. And I'm sure there are multiple creative ways of creating that ecosystem for employees to feel supported. These are some of the examples from what we are doing at Signant.
Sure. No, great to hear that. Thanks. So Papia, I mean, since you are interacting with a lot of clients on this topic and you're doing deep consulting work, I know, as on Cube, with the clients, what in your view are the top challenges employees face across different industries that you have worked into? And in particularly, I'm curious to know what kind of emotional challenges, these employees are facing, and what are some good practices that you have seen that companies have done and has been effective, right? Because looking for some great tips or case studies or examples where people have done something interesting, to take care of the emotional challenges or issues by the employees. What has worked?
I think in place of a challenge, I would put in this question that is there in our mind. I think most of us have it in our mind. Why should I be going to office? This is the question, and then we keep on rationalizing. Everybody has a different rationale. Somebody will say the travel time doesn't make sense. Somebody says that my family time gets compromised. Somebody will say my exercise time gets compromised. So there will be multiple answers to that, but there is a big question that is there for everybody, that why should I be going to office? What do I get by going to office? I'm able to do my work, I'm able to interact, I'm able to do this. So that's the question. Wherever organizations have been able to address this question, that why should you come to office, and make it meaningful for employees, I think that chord has struck. So
absolutely correct. Absolutely
the first important, although we keep on, like infrastructure and facilities is a very, very important part of it. I would put it like an hygiene, because it's a hygiene. If you put in, then those things are taken care of. Transport is becoming one big issue. So I think many organizations are going, even when they were not giving it before COVID, they have started giving, because transport concerns are there. And hostels and facilities and all that is very, very important, that the experience has to be same as pre-COVID experience. But what is most important is giving them meaningful things to do when they come to work. Exactly. The things they can't do virtually, right? So what we are finding, for example, you will find that even though employees have objections to coming to office, but when there was like a war room to brainstorm and create some answers or solve some big problems, report, make a deal or something, employees were more than happy to spend 24 hours in office. They came together, there was no question, because there was a meaning, right? Similarly, whenever there is a big celebration that people are coming to, celebrating year completion, celebrating a big achievement by the organization, people do not hesitate to come to office. Whenever they are, like hackathons, for example, in-person hackathons, when people are doing it, where they're completely immersed in it and they're doing team hackathons, etc., we find that people are more than happy to come to office. So the question is, what can they do in office which they can't do that well at home? And exactly. How do we give them the experiences of joy, fulfillment, experience of belonging, experience of pride when they come to office, right? So all the one-on-one meetings, all the manager meeting, mentoring meeting, coaching meeting, learning meetings have to happen one-on-one. So have you put that in calendar, rostering, both the people should be coming together. All the team meetings have to be in the person. How are you planning for it? All the learning sessions, which we pushed virtually, can we bring it back to the classroom? Because when the people learn together, they grow together, they bond together. So every opportunity of saying what can be done in person, which is seen as a more meaningful and value add to the person. When you start doing that, all the employees who have gone through this experience have a high propensity to come even more than 2 days, 3 days a week to office, because they start enjoying. It is like a hook. How do you create those hooks in the organization So we don't find, Sanjeev, like a whole organization having same experience. We find that there are leaders who have been able to do that within the organizations. Because where the teams are completely empowered to take a decision. So when they take a decision saying that, let's all come together on Tuesday, and they come together and they have a brilliant experience, then they sometimes say next week, let's do 2 days, right? There are teams which are saying that 1 week in a month, we will be together. Let's put our heads. Giving that empowerment to the team. So the leadership role is shifting a lot. And it's quite difficult. It is difficult to manage remote. It was difficult to manage office. It is more difficult to manage remote. It is extremely, extremely difficult to manage hybrid.
Absolutely. I think these are very, very insightful, knowledge that you're sharing, Papia. In fact, in our experience, we do some work, a little bit of work with, clients on this work. One thing, consistently, you exactly said it, give them a purpose. Why should they come? And we have to address that, question head on. If we duck that question, we'll be doing lip service. We'll not be able to mechanically get people to work, and we'll be satisfied. I've got 50% people at work, but they'll not be engaged and they will not feel belonging. They will not see the purpose of why they're coming to office. So give them that purpose of coming to office is the first thing. I will like to add on one thing. Today, technology is helping big way. I have seen their case studies where people use analytic tools like organizational network analysis itself, for example, in surveying who should come when, for what purpose, right? And very clearly identifying that I want to do like project brainstorming or some, team kickoff, project kickoff, or for some learning one-to-one. So identify those activities and populate those activities in the work schedule more than anything else with the people that they really need to collaborate. If we are able to hit that very well, I think we will be on a right path. Otherwise, we'll just force people to come. They will not see meaning that I was sitting alone in the office. I came, you asked me to come, but what purpose did it serve? I'm not sure about it, right? Then it's going to fizzle out. I think that's a very, useful insight you're giving. So one, last question that I would ask, because the time is very short, the topic is so vast that, we can go on, but how are we, preparing our managers? Whatever we decide in the boardroom, ultimately what's get executed on the ground through the people manager will make the difference, isn't it? And this is the toughest time to be manager because you're dealing with your own issues and to be an HR also, both. I think it's the toughest time to be into HR and to be the people manager because the situation is complex and the opportunity also is great actually, if we can make a difference, isn't it? Both ways. So how are we, Joyita, any input from you or anyone can comment on very quickly because we have 3-4 minutes left. Quick comment on how do we prepare our managers to deal with it?
So surely, they have to be far more structured in their approach of communication. Communicate. And so that is very important to keep them aligned to the organization purpose and goal. And, so that is very important. And structured meetings and those kind of, one-on-ones for all of it, is very important. And one of the other things is tracking productivity and performance, which is a big question, you would always have certain section of people who are self-driven and they will finish the task. But definitely there is also a population which takes advantage of this whole system of not being there and trying to, kind of mix a lot of personal work, when they are working from home. So that kind of regular feedback mechanism, regular, assessing and tracking, the work output that is required. That is very important so that people know that this is what you're supposed to deliver and where are you on track. If you miss out on that, you would always have a section of people who are just trying to, make the most.
And doing this without micromanaging, without seeing as micromanaging. Absolutely. I think I'm just putting a caution. I'm taking liberty of saying that, Joyita, because this is important, but without sounding.
That's why I said that it is purely the work output that needed to be done, and as I said, large part of communication will also to keep people aligned.
All right.
Because in the absence of those regular meets and connects and stuff like that, the whole culture piece and all that, which is kind of broken in many of these organizations which haven't been coming in, you have to again build that back, get that. So, that is very important.
Got it. Devesh, from you, a quick, maybe just in one sentence, how do you prepare the managers?
I think for me, in terms of the managers, they need to emphasize on inclusion. We still need to realize that we still have
That's a
people
good point.
working from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while we are in the office, people are working from home. We very tend to easily forget while they are on a Teams call with us that we need to capture their point of view as well, and they will not speak up because they feel there's a certain amount of inertia and apprehension. So emphasizing on inclusion is something which I would which I have been emphasizing with my leadership team, and every person is different. So, let's deal with it.
We have to be cautious about
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you brought a great point, inclusion, and we can easily miss on that, people, especially working remotely, because if in a meeting, 10 people are talking in the room, the 2 on the call, you can just ignore them. You can just forget about them easily, right? They have a tendency, unless you're conscious about it. Papia, from you, your experience, any tips for managers?
All the tips for manager development continues. I don't think there is a, but what in addition in our research and it's a immensely human interaction. It's the humaneness it is required, because that's something that does not come in naturally. We need to really, help managers sift and, be mindful, be compassionate, be empathetic, understand employees, build a very strong bond, because we want managers to be the conduit between organization and people. So they should be able to bring in that bond. That will be important.
All right. So we have a couple of announcements. So we'll close in next 2 minutes. So one, certainly just wanted to share that as enabling, but we do some amount of work on this area. In case anyone is interested, you could reach out to us. We do some workshops and some consulting work. So that's one. Secondly, there'll be some small poll. I want to take your feedback on, there's a mental health day issues coming up. So we will be certainly supporting this in case anyone's interested. But before we close, I want to thank all the panelists, to Joyita, Papia, Devesh. It was such a pleasure to hear you and get some very practical insights based on your personal experience and research, which has been, I found, very, very helpful. If I summarize, be inclusive, that is important, enable the managers, and the challenges of everyone is very, very unique, right? And I think the whole concept, Papia, that you talk about, the transformation where it's a reverse migration, I really like that. And I got interested in what your concept is, that reverse migration is happening, which is very, very unique and kind of practices, Devesh, that you are talking about, enabling managers and taking care of the workspace, which is safe for people to come back, give them a purpose, right? And Joyita, how manufacturing are also affected, who are not into hybrid mode, still are affected by the whole hybrid model, is very interesting the way you are solving. So thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed this discussion. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience would have also picked up maybe 1 or 2 key things that they can implement at their workplace. If it is so, then I think it is time well spent. So with that, we'll close the session at 4 as we promised, and we look forward to see you again, maybe in few weeks' time on some interesting topic again. Till that time, stay safe and enjoy, make your hybrid working the real experience, purposeful experience for employees. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.